Welcome back to the Big Home Ed Conversations. I am so excited to be back for our second season with the lovely Ashley. I actually got her back from the US, guys. We rescued her. We've got her back in our midst. Um, glad to have her home. Say hello, Ashley, just so they know you're there.
Yeah, glad to be home and glad to be doing this again. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? I mean, she's in the midst of like a house move and goodness knows what else. So we're being kind to her tonight. We're going to try and wrap this one up. It's not going to be a long one. But we're just wanted to kind of come back and obviously just say hello to everybody again, let you guys know who we are, why this podcast exists. But we are going to talk as well about the fact that deregistrations are on the rise. And obviously our society will be concerned about that, but I certainly am not. I'm actually really excited to see that so many parents are trying to just sort of change the pace a little bit and offer their children a little bit more freedom, and their family
Hmm.
more freedom, and obviously meet their needs as well. Because I think so much of our school system seems to be hell-bent on suppressing human needs.
Yeah.
And I think so many
Yeah.
parents are actually waking up to the fact that that's not good and it doesn't do us any good. And so, yeah, we've got some really great statistics for you guys to kind of dig into in a minute and let you know about kind of what's been going on and have a bit of a chat about why we think this is actually happening. And yeah, really exciting stuff. A very, very, very brief, I promise, a little bit of housekeeping to start you off because we've actually got a couple of exciting things that we're working on. First and foremost is our home ed affiliate store. So we're kind of attaching it to the podcast. And essentially, if you are a home educating family and you run pretty much any business, obviously online, really, so making any resources, offering any services, any like tutoring, anything really, that you would love to add details of into our affiliate store. Um, we are going to be obviously setting that up attached to the podcast. We're getting a lot of traffic now coming through to the podcast page on the website. And essentially, we will want to do some shout outs. We're going to do some free shout outs on the podcast itself for any products that we've used and services we've tried and all the rest of it. So reach out basically is what I'm saying. Come and tell us what you do, and we will make sure that we've got you listed on there. So it's all of our usual kind of social media links, etc. You can send an email to kelly@offroadingmotherhood.co.uk as well. But yeah, just reach out and let us know if that's something that you guys would like to get involved with. Um, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think from the housekeeping side of things, obviously we have various different bits and pieces that you guys can be getting involved with. Do come and register for the newsletter as well. We're going to be sending out some brilliant resources this season, stuff that's kind of attaching to the individual episodes, which will help you to obviously go deeper, to listen to what we've got to say, but then obviously to go and do your own work, and to make some changes, consider your values, consider how you want to parent, things you want to change, and actually start to make some really great impact into your day-to-day journey. So hopefully listening to us will kind of spark some thoughts and you can go away, use the resources we're going to be sending out on email to the people on our mailing list and letting them know how they can do something for themselves to kind of help them kind of really cement that thought, and start to make it count. So yeah, so that's it for
Mhm.
me in terms of boring stuff. It's not boring, hopefully. Um,
No, it's exciting.
say boring. It's not boring. It's exciting. But anyway, so we'll move on to actually cracking on with what we wanted to talk about today. So Ashley is going to share her funny story with us this time because she's the one who's had the exciting summer off doing crazy stuff with their kids. I just had kids with a horrendous norovirus sick bug that wiped out nearly all of August, which
Oh
completely
no.
ruined it for me. Um, yeah, so she's been having some fun. So I'll let her share with you the story that tickled me over the summer anyway.
Yeah, so we were in the States most of the time at the beach because I have family in Florida and we were there. And what the area that we're in is really well known for collecting shark's teeth, but they recently worked on the beaches, moving some sand around to make the beachy part a little bit more large, I guess, like a little bit larger, a little bit longer, um, so that when the tide comes in and out, you still have a lot of beach to be on. It's pretty interesting. It costs a lot of money. And in that process, they really took away all the shark's teeth. So whatever shuffling they did with the sand, we just were not finding them like we were in the past. But we did have a really interesting shark story, even though we didn't find that many shark teeth this year. I think we only got two at the end, and normally you get dozens. So we were early on in the trip in the water, and it was just so lovely because this summer the water was so warm that even as a parent, you could just walk right in. It was fantastic. And so I was really excited to not be miserable in the water with my kids and cold and wanting to get
Mhm.
out or any of that. I was actually able to really enjoy that time. And so it was just me with my three girls, and we were there playing. I was obviously hyper focused on them because of the fact that it was just me, and I didn't want any of them to have any instance where I couldn't reach them or something like that, or I missed one of their heads going under or whatever. And I wasn't really looking around. I wasn't scanning the horizon. And suddenly a lifeguard came up behind me and was like, "We just want to let you know that there's a shark in the water." And I was like, "What?" And I look, and sure enough, you see the fin going around. And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, we'll get out." And she's like, "Yeah, you don't have to. Like, it's up to you. But I just want to let you know because he's probably in a feeding frenzy." Like, those are literally the words she used, feeding frenzy. I was like, "Oh no, we'll get out." So we get out of the water and we're walking back up to our stuff. And there's this elderly couple there. And the man is like, "Oh, you really wanted to swim with the sharks, didn't you?" And I'm thinking, and he's like laughing. And I'm like, okay, this is a funny story because no one got hurt. But where were you 5 minutes ago to be like, "Excuse me, ma'am, like, would you like to get your children out of the water because there's a shark swimming around?" Instead of laughing at me, help me. Oh
So people
my
these
gosh.
days
So,
don't like to interfere, do they? So they're just like, "I'll just
well,
let you get
my
it."
girl,
Thinking, oh,
she's
she's
just
no.
she's living on the edge, like checking off that bucket list item. And I was just the rest of the summer constantly scanning. So I would watch the kids do a little scan, watch the kids do a little scan. And people probably thought I was, I don't even know what, like looking for something or kind of crazy looking when there's nothing there. I don't know. But I'm like, okay, so now we know. And it was so
I
interesting as
see.
well because the lifeguards aren't on the beach. They're only over by the pool. So they had to have been notified by someone on the beach that there was a shark sighting and then come from the pool over to the beach to let those of us know that didn't, who were apparently wearing blinders, that the sharks were in the water. And I'm thinking, why weren't those people just telling us? Like, why would you go? I was
I
just
know.
ridiculous.
It's
So,
just
yeah.
crazy, right? Like,
Ah,
people just like come and actually say, just, I just
yeah.
spotted a shark there. Good Lord.
Yeah. So and then we watched it for quite some time, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna go get my camera because like I'll go get my phone and we'll take a picture. And of course, the second I turned around to go up to get my phone and bring it back, the shark was gone. So
Of course it was.
classic. Yes.
But you've
Yes.
got the memory. That's very cool. I mean, at the very nice, it's not
Vivid.
terrifying, but it's a really cool thing to get to see swimming around in the water. Like, what a great opportunity
Yeah.
for them to see something like that close. So cool.
Yeah. 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 It was definitely a memorable moment of the trip.
Definitely much more exciting than the norovirus, but never mind. Um, Anyway, so yeah, so there you go. So we've had a fun summer. So that's a good recap for us. So that's kind of a gist of what we've been up to. But anyway, so we thought we'd talk about the fact that obviously quite a lot of people at the minute are some of the world is freaking out, and some of the world is really excited about the fact that so many parents are choosing to deregister their kids and have done this September. Um, and would have done last year. So in the UK, the home education sort of rise in numbers, so the deregistration numbers was around about 50,000, which is just
Mm.
amazing. And it's basically a real massive indication to me that um, we've got a lot of families who are asking questions. Um, but ultimately, that was the biggest increase the UK has seen since the
Mhm.
COVID years. So, back when obviously lots of people were pulling out because of health and needing to isolate and all the rest of it. And maybe we're even seeing that their kids like were quite stressed being in school around COVID. Um, because obviously there's an awful lot of like constant hand washing, and anxiety and wearing masks. And obviously for some children that would have been really, really anxiety provoking. So I know that a lot of families kind of felt the need to pull them out, for those
Right.
reasons back during that time. But ultimately, much like myself, I mean, I noticed during lockdown I had a 3.5-year-old and a baby. So I was definitely pre the school era. But I had my eldest son essentially had been going to a nursery environment, and I noticed immediately during lockdown how much calmer, happier, more engaged he was. He was eating better, he was
Mhm.
sleeping better, he was learning more, he was chattier, he had, loads more to say, he had so much more confidence in himself, he was just infinitely better regulated. And that had a massive knock-on effect to our family life and his education. Like I really noticed that both of our kind of our creativity was spiked. We were like way more relaxed, in our day to day. And I think what's really fascinating for me is I don't think I'd ever really heard anything about home education until then. And obviously, back at that point, you kind of heard about obviously the homeschooling, as it was referred to in this country during that time when a lot of kids were doing school work that had been kind of assigned by the school. And
Right.
parents were like desperately trying to hold down a full-time job whilst getting three kids to sit on laptops at the dining room table, do their classes and their homework stuff, and everyone was going out of their minds. And that absolutely is not what home education in itself, like elective home education, looks like at all. But parents
This is one
obviously
of
were
my
just
biggest
experiencing
pet
that.
peeves.
Yeah, it's so
Mhm.
frustrating, isn't it? It
Yeah,
really
everyone's like,
is.
"Oh, I homeschooled." And I'm like, "No, you did not. You had a horrible experience of being
Yeah,
forced to do work with your children that you had no preparation for, and it was in
no,
like the absolute worst circumstances, and you were trying
yeah,
to, yeah, navigate this. Just that was not homeschool to me.
no, no,
That's not what
it
we do."
absolutely isn't. And I think whenever I talk to parents and they're like, "Oh no, I just don't know if I can." Like I think like COVID, like the homeschooling around COVID, like nearly killed me. I'm just like, yeah, no, but please don't compare it to that. Like that,
Right.
that really was your child doing work that, again, as we've talked about in previous episodes, and we'll probably talk about again, is not necessarily aligned with their interests. That you are kind of forcing them to sit down and do something, but they haven't
Right.
even got the entertainment of doing it next to their best mate and like sharing notes and stuff during it. Like at least they normally have that kind of social aspect whilst they're having to sit through these things. They can find their entertainment another way. But now they're just like being forced by you to sit there and focus, and they don't want to do it. And
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, with home education, we don't tend to sit and put our kids under that kind of pressure.
Right.
Not at any degree, kind of the same level anyway. Um, that it is mostly kind of pretty relaxed. And I think a lot of parents found that when they kind of like release the pressure a little bit and we're just like, do you know what? Like, we're just not going to worry about it. We're just going to try and get this done. And if we can't, we can't. And we're just going to go to the park, like go to the park. We're just going to go for a nice, decent walk together. And they actually kind of realized that they could cover off the same things as was being asked by school. So maybe they'd be given a list, for example, of loads of addition. And then they would put that to one side, like a big worksheet of sums. And they'd play a board game and they'd like them to use two die. So they had to count up the two numbers and basically did all the
Mhm.
addition. And then they just filled out the worksheets to one side. Like it's like they've still done the same
Hilarious.
thing. Like
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
making them do it like that. Like they're gonna kill me. Do it that way. And those are the people, I guess, who recognise that actually it doesn't have to look the same way, and that they can still have the same outcomes. And those are the people who I think have kind of gone on to become home educators, probably, because they probably recognise that their kids actually thrived under that kind of
Yeah.
tutelage, and started to do even better. But anyway, we digress a little bit. So
Sorry, that was my fault.
the numbers, no, it's fine. The numbers were just insane, and I think you were looking up the US numbers, and I mean, in the US, it's so huge anyway. But I think there's definitely a growing homeschooling over there. Um,
Oh,
for some
yeah.
maybe alternate reasons. Like I feel like in the UK, most of the reasons seem to be focused on mental health and maybe just not being satisfied with the quality of the school. Like we're seeing
Mhm.
schools obviously like not replacing teachers as they're leaving now. We're seeing them having to like get teachers to multi-subject and cover several different subjects in the school because they can't afford to replace teachers.
Yep.
Like we're
Yep.
seeing schools having issues with asbestos, having walls crumbling,
Oh,
like
right.
falling into massive disrepair. You've got kids without workbooks, you've got all of this stuff, right? So like there's an awful lot of under-resourced and underfunded and overtaxed teachers, and quite
Hmm.
difficult learning environments for all of those reasons, and so many more. So there's lots of reasons here, but I think in the US there's probably some starkly different reasons going on as well, um,
Yeah.
that I think are quite
Yeah.
concerning, aren't they, really?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, even just looking at the numbers at a broad level, when you look at 2023, the number of students being homeschooled had risen to 3.62 million, which was a 45% increase from the prior year. And then in 2024, it rose to 4.3 million from that like 3.7 in 2023. So around 600,000 new students started homeschooling in 2024. And
That's amazing.
it's so interesting because I think that when we look at COVID and what that event did to us globally, there were certainly so very many issues with things that things that went wrong, right? Like so many problems that arose from that. But there were some good things that came out of that. And I think just the awareness
Mm,
of home educating is something that just really was just so broadly applied. Suddenly everyone was back at home, and obviously there were horrible situations,
mm,
and funny memes and things that happen when suddenly their kids are on a Zoom call with their teacher now, and they're like 4 years old, not four, that's too young, but let's say 7 or 8,
mm.
and then their mom is in the background coming out of the shower, and they're blurring it on the Instagram, and
My
it's like, oh,
goodness.
no one's used to this. It was so funny, like those funny things that come out of it, or the kid just like getting up and walking away and like bringing their cat back, and just like funny little things that came out of it, and then horrible situations that happened. But broadly, it really did just shine the light on this option of home
Yes.
education, of homeschooling. And like you were saying, some parents quickly realized that with just a little tweak, they could see dramatic improvements. You didn't
Mm,
have to strictly follow this sit at your desk for 8 hours and then
mm,
work on homework up in your room for a further 3 hours. And
mm.
so I think that that is certainly some of the reason that we're seeing such an increase in numbers year over year, is because there is this continued conversation around homeschooling that really just had that like fire lit under it in COVID times. But the other reasons that we're seeing homeschooling in like the more recent years, 2023, 2024, are around a lot of different areas. Still the continued health concerns. So, wanting to make sure that families are still cautious. Even now, we're kind of seeing COVID coming back a little bit, although obviously without all the um, regulations and restrictions around it. But
Yeah.
certainly flexibility, being able to customize that education for your kids based on their interests.
Yeah.
Largely, there's dissatisfaction with the traditional schools. So, all the reasons you were mentioning, too, I would also even add to that the social stuff like bullying and peer pressure, and
Mm,
just wanting to kind of protect your kids a little bit from those environments. And then
absolutely.
the other really big one, too, is obviously health and safety, right? So
Yeah.
we just saw this horrible event in the States. I was just learning from you about what went on here in the summer, and just, wanting to make sure that your kid is not having to go through. I mean, I'm glad my kids don't have to have, the gunman drills in addition to
Yeah.
fire drills and earthquake drills
Yeah.
and all of that. So it is definitely very scary, and something I completely understand being a reason on that list why you might choose to homeschool it, an adding factor even. And then the other
Yeah.
stuff is around family bonding and
Hmm.
religious and philosophical beliefs. So just wanting to really kind of customize, excuse me, the like
Hmm.
educational philosophies that your children are getting. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean it's still going strong in the States. I don't think it's, you know, I don't think it will see a decline. We might level out, but I don't think we'll
no.
decline.
I think
Yeah.
that's the thing. I mean, when you think about how home education truthfully is a human right, I mean, if you just just break it back down for a second and just imagine like
Hmm.
a mama lion sending her baby lion cubs off to be educated by somebody else, um, like it's under somebody else's regime, teaching them different rules and all the rest of it, and expecting that to work within their community, their that what they have to do as lions and all the rest of it. Like it's just crazy. Like the idea is bonkers. Um,
Hmm.
but as human beings, we seem to think that it's just completely impossible for a parent, like just society at large happens to think that most parents are not suitable as educators for
Hmm.
their children, that their local community, that's just being involved and present and taking part in their local community is not enough. Um, and this kind of academic hierarchy, this idea that children have to be academic to be worthwhile and valuable, and they have to
Hmm.
achieve certain grades in order to be valuable, etc., is a really new concept, and is something which, as I say, schooling, as we discussed in the last season, has only been like it is now for 140 years. Um, Not even that. And that ultimately literacy and the treatment of people who have additional needs, sort of SEND provisions,
Hmm.
etc., um, diminished. Like the quality of
Yeah.
education actually faltered hugely. The judgment increased, the bullying increased, the
Hmm.
marginalization increased, the all of these different things have actually been created, problems have been created by what we now term traditional schooling, but is not traditional at all. It's literally really
Yeah.
only the last 100 or so years, which is a very tiny little blip in human lifetimes, right? It's crazy. Like we've been around for thousands of years. And I think we have to really kind of be mindful that when we're choosing home education, we are actually choosing to allow ourselves to be a little bit more human, to just be ourselves, to be a creature that needs to meet its needs, that needs to expand its own horizons and do its own thing, as actually is seen fit by its community and by the demands of the world that we live in as it stands right now. Um, and I think that so many families are now starting to recognize that actually, with the age of information, as we kind of came into the 2000s and we have the internet and we have so much information available. I mean, obviously, people have home educated since compulsory schooling. It's not even compulsory, but like it's termed as compulsory schooling, which still annoys me. Um,
Yeah.
since that was kind of enacted, people have been educated all the way through, primarily rural communities, religious families, families with children who had additional needs, and so on. But also an undercurrent of people just like you and I who don't have any specific reason to be home educating beyond just wanting to, and actually
Mm.
seeing it as a really great option for our kids. So there was always people doing it. And it just kind of got swept under the carpet to some degree because there's no information. You couldn't access that information. You didn't see beyond the people in your local community. You just wouldn't have seen who was home educating. They just wouldn't have been as visible. Whereas
Yeah.
nowadays, we're able to be on Instagram and TikTok and having our blogs and our websites and our services and things that get out there and say to people, hey, look at us. It's an option. Like you can do this and
Yeah.
we can show you how. And that helps people to start to recognize that actually, okay, actually, maybe I can make this work. Because actually they've got access to the resources, they've got access to coaches and support mentors and things like that. They've got incredible books to read that have been written by just incredible people. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's just, I think it's brilliant that as people are starting to know better, they're starting to see and think and learn and kind of reclaim some of the critical thinking that um, not just kind of following and doing as they're told and like this is just what happens and you send your kids to school and like yes okay they're probably going to get bullied, yes okay they're going to get stressed, yes okay they might not cope with exams, but that's just the way it is, like you just have to get them through it. Like parents are starting to recognize that actually no, that's not necessarily how it has to be. We can look at it from a
Yeah.
different perspective. I think it's just really
Yeah.
exciting.
It is. And I definitely recognize that I am privileged in this space because I have the ability to stay home with my children. And I know there are plenty of families out there who probably would love to embrace home education, but can't because
Hmm.
their livelihood depends on two incomes and they need that for their
Yeah.
home and for their children and for the lifestyle that they're living and or even just to be basically surviving, right? It's so expensive these
Yeah.
days no matter where you are, like it's beyond
Hmm.
shocking. And so I completely respect that not everyone has the same opportunities, and I think that that is another just side that I definitely want to say. It's not ever that I'm against schooling or schools or like I don't
Mm.
envision a world where everyone's homeschooling and schools don't
No.
exist. Like I
No.
recognize that that is not going
No,
to
it
happen.
definitely it wouldn't suit everybody either. Like from a, just a general
Yeah,
like what you
yeah,
enjoy and what you feel capable of and not what you
absolutely.
actually want to be doing with your day. Like I totally respect it's not what everybody wants to do either. Schools
Yeah,
need to be better. They
absolutely.
need to be providing the
Exactly.
actual service they're supposed to be providing for these
Yeah,
families who want to use it and need to use it. Um,
exactly. Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard spot to be in because I recognize there are a lot of families in that spot. And
yeah.
I'm very thankful that we currently have this opportunity to really dive deep into kind of customizing the school experience for our children and being able to follow their lead and still really have a wonderful education provided to them. And it's interesting because you were kind of talking about when you started during COVID with your son, and I was already homeschooling my oldest in that school year that COVID happened. And
Hmm.
my middle was in a local preschool. And we loved that because it gave her the opportunity to really learn Italian. Because even though
Mm.
we lived in Italy, we spoke English in the home. And obviously, everywhere else she heard Italian. Her grandparents only spoke Italian. So any
Yeah.
family member of my husband's only spoke Italian, but it's nice to kind of speak it with other kids and kind of learn that play side to it. But the second that COVID happened and she was home, and then, I was already homeschooling my oldest, and she was there, and her younger sister was very little. And it was just like, this is actually wonderful. Like, I'm seeing
Yeah.
her, even though she's, little, she's really taking to this as well. And so it really was a lovely way to kind of bring the whole family into it. And then after that, it just sort of snowballed. So I mean, our reasons, like you were
Yeah.
saying, we don't have a strong one, but our reason for homeschooling then was just very much out of the want for me to have my girls really know English well, because we all know it's
Mhm.
difficult. The spelling, all of that can be very
Mm.
challenging to non native English speakers and even to plenty
Mhm.
English speakers, plenty current English
Yeah.
speakers, native
Yeah.
tongue. Um, but I wanted that was important to me, and so I said, okay, we're gonna once they get to first grade or year two here in England, we'll start home educating. And
Mhm.
I just kind of realized with my second, like, no, I don't have to wait. Like, we can do this now. And she just
Yeah.
never went back.
Yeah.
And now my reasons have blossomed into a lot of other areas as I've also grown in my understanding of the educational
Mm.
system and uh, the challenges that it faces. And I taught in a school, so I also have that personal experience as a teacher dealing with parents and children and the um, you know overarching kind of governmental bodies over the school and all of that. So it definitely it's like teachers have a hard job. It's got to get
Yeah.
better. I hope it gets better.
Yeah. It really does. And I think, unfortunately, at the moment, I know one of the biggest reasons why so many parents will be deregistering right now is because the government lie on why parents are letting their kids have their mental health days, why they are letting them take time out of school
Hmm.
and aren't as like hot on making sure they're actually getting attendance, etc., is because they
Oh,
are they're obviously really conscious that their kids. need to be treated as human beings and that they need to be able to be enjoying their education. And that
Yeah.
education, like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. And so
Right.
you really need to make education palatable to young people. But the government's line on it right now is that parents are failing their kids if they let them take those days, that they are literally causing them to have a less successful future. And as such, they've cracked down even harder on attendance, and they're doubling the fines this year, to the point where if a family takes their kid out for 3 unauthorized absences over 3 years, they're taken to court. They're quite literally going to be potentially putting on your criminal record. Um, and to be
Gosh.
opting in to a service, right, at the end of the day, school is an opt-in service provided by the government that you can
Yeah.
utilize if you want to. And essentially, they are putting such huge power like over families. They are literally dictating when they can go on holiday, when they can take breaks, whether it's okay if their child has illnesses and appointments. Like quite literally, they get punished for attendance sometimes and like banned from going to the school dance at the end of the year or whatever. Or like end of year celebrations if their attendance isn't 100%. So if a child has had a load of days off because of an illness and they've had to keep going to hospital appointments or something, that counts. And they literally won't let them go to the Christmas dance or whatever. Like it's shocking. And parents are really starting to think, do you know what? Hold on a minute. Like you're supposed to be providing an amazing education, one that makes my kids really successful, that I can trust that when I put them in your care, they'll be safe, happy, cared about, and that they're going to be inspired to do an amazing job one day, to do something really cool, to go out there in the world feeling confident and capable and happy. And instead, all you're interested in is physically just getting them in and like keeping them in. And like poor teachers are literally being stuck with, as I said before, no resources, like very difficult environments to be working in anyway, very little
Yeah.
support and like further training and stuff. If they ask for it, they'll rarely get it. Um, and I think it's just really sad that, as I say, it's really exciting that parents are asking the questions. They're actually sitting back and going, "Wait, hang on, like, no, this is not on me to just force them to come in. This is on you
Mhm.
to provide a better service." And that's up to our government. It's up to them to get on with it and to do that work because, as you said, um, it's not parents kind of like choosing school that's the problem. It's the schools themselves not having the money and the resources to be able to provide a really great education and also thinking outside the box a little bit, like coming at it from a different perspective, coming up with a new idea, a new way of doing things, reducing
Mhm.
testing and exams, etc., etc. There's so many things that if they sat down with an amazing bank of holistic educators, people who actually had ideas and like cared about children's welfare and prioritized their interests and actually said,
Mm.
okay, if you could redesign schools, like, what would they look like? Like, what would you do differently? I mean, they are literally hemorrhaging teachers. And now we've
Yeah.
got quite a lot of families deciding that actually, do you know what? We don't want to play a part in this either. Um, and I just think it's
Yeah.
exciting. I think it's exciting that parents are asking the questions and that they're seeing what's going on. And that with the age of information we've got, this stuff which has been swept under the carpet for so many generations, where this information just wouldn't have been available. Like you just wouldn't have known what was going on behind the scenes. People know now,
Yeah.
they're seeing and they're talking to each other. Um, and that is huge. And it really helps because that communication allows us to make better choices for ourselves and to ensure that our needs are being met and our kids' needs are being met. Um, and yeah, ultimately that they're given better opportunities because of it, because parents know how to
Yeah.
support them better.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting, even just, going back for a second to the absenteeism. I it's not that way in the US, at least not in many places. I don't want to say there isn't any place because maybe there isn't. I certainly don't know all the schools. Um, but
Mm.
I've not heard of a family being fined, and certainly not at a countrywide level, if you miss X number of days of school, and definitely not going to court after three or probably even 10 misses. And but I question the motive behind that because I'm not quite sure. I have to imagine that the goal is to say, well, if your child's in school, they're going to learn more and perform better. So we're enforcing this to ensure that they have a good education. But I don't actually have recall or have ever been, I've never read anything that says that absenteeism is directly related to performance. In
No.
fact, aside from like massive absenteeism, like chronic absenteeism in those cases, I think we talked about this before, where a student is caring for an ill family member or something where they're physically not capable of getting to school unless their parent who is not around ever can't drive them or
Yeah.
something very outrageous and not
Hmm.
common
Yeah.
is the only time I've seen that linked to performance and kind of
Hmm.
academic success. And
Yeah.
so if your child is ill, and I remember occasionally seeing like if they don't have a fever, you can send them to school, kind of like the advertisements here. And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
well, I can be very sick personally and not have a fever, and I would not go to work. And I
No.
certainly am not going to force my child to endure a school day if they have a pounding headache and are miserable. And
No.
like, I think that's my right as a mom to decide. And now, don't get me wrong, I'm
Yeah.
sure there are some parents out there who are abusing the system or aren't caring if their kid is missing class. But those are not, again, it's not common. It's an outlier. Like that is not the
No.
majority of the people. So to set such a blanket standard for such an
Mm.
interesting thing, like missing a day of school because you're sick or you have a
Mm.
orthodontist appointment, it just seems
Yeah.
really arbitrary. I'm just not quite sure that was thought through.
Well, I think that's the thing. I think you're right. It's looking at the motives, and I think number one is potentially money making. It's been really simple, though.
Yeah,
Obviously, if you're fining parents
I'm
hundreds of
not.
pounds, like clearly, I mean, that money's not going to the school, is it? That's going to the local authority, so goodness knows what they'll do with it. But it's it's really quite shocking. But yeah, I think essentially, if you're saying to families that they are going to get fined if their kids don't have great attendance, then it almost makes it seem like, okay, so parents are being told that their children's like I don't know, almost job is in essence is to be in school. Um,
Mhm.
and that I'm trying to think of how to put this. It's almost like that has some sort of value attached to it. So um that obviously if that means that they won't be able to go on and get great grades or that they won't get good results on their GCSEs at the end of it, um, that ultimately like I'm not explaining this at all well. I had a thought that ran through my head as you were speaking a minute ago, and it's kind of escaped me, but it's kind of like people's value basically, that your children
Yeah,
have a value level, and that you are I don't know, preventing them from being able to achieve that value, and that value is owed to the government almost. Like if parents are being fined for their kids to not be there, they're like, I don't know, like what are they trying to do? Like get their costs back? Like it's I don't know, it's so
yeah,
weird about it. Like I'm really not explaining this
yeah,
very well. I thought would come to be
yeah.
clear
Well,
later,
I
and I'll
see what
want
you're
to
saying
come
though.
back and we'll do this bit. Yeah, it's weird. Like it's just a weird kind of concept that parents aren't allowed to make a decision about their like it's literally just again human rights, the human right to be able to participate in something when you want
Mhm.
to. Like if I did a job, and yes, okay, you do get your pay docked sometimes, like you don't always get paid for your sick leave or whatever. And if you have loads and loads of episodes of like not being there, then a job can decide to actually terminate your employment, etc. Like, of course, these things happen,
Sure.
but ultimately that's employment. That's different. Like school is something you're opting into. It's a service. You're just using it or you're not. And if a child is not able to be there, or you as a family want to use it more flexibly, and whatever, I get that obviously it creates extra work for the teachers, sometimes like helping to catch up students who haven't been in or whatever. Like it would be a bit of an utter mess if you had literally everyone could just be in and out whenever they felt like it. Like I do appreciate that would make it
Mhm.
quite tricky, but I don't know. It just feels a bit silly that parents are kind of being put under this much pressure.
Well, especially because largely parents are appreciative of school. We recognize the value of an education. We recognize that attendance is important to learn the lesson of the day so you can keep up with the coursework and the class and progress, right? I don't think, I mean, my mom certainly wasn't like, yeah, I missed school for a month. Like that was
Of
never
course not.
like
Yeah.
a thing to say.
No.
So it just seems, you know, sort of, yeah, I just don't get, I guess I don't get it. I mean,
Yeah.
I understand, but I don't understand why they're
Yeah.
doing it in terms of
Yeah.
the value to the child. Like it seems like the wrong place to focus if you're trying to increase
Yeah.
a child's success.
Yeah. I was going to say there's a
Yeah.
lot more questions that need to be asked, not just enforcement. And I think, I mean,
Mhm.
I chat to my kind of members of my family about this all the time, because we've got a member of my family who's in the police force, and essentially, like, we talk all the time about how enforcement and laying down the law and punishment, um, very, very little. It does very little for
Mhm. Mhm.
remedying behavior. That actually you
Yes.
have to ask the questions about why it's happening. You have to get into their shoes. You have to think about what they've experienced and the wider, like we were talking about it today, literally, about obviously what
Mhm.
happened with that awful stabbing in the summer. That we have to
Mhm.
ask the questions about what has happened to that person. Like, why did they have
Mhm.
that thought in their heads? Why are they feeling like that? Like, what has happened to them? um, what treatment has become them, what bullying have they experienced, what whatevers have they been doing that helps them to get into the headspace of doing something like that. And I think that ultimately this is the biggest problem with society in general, to be perfectly frank, and it isn't just contained to school. I think that's why I care about it so much, is because it has a massive knock-on effect to how we behave as adults, how we treat each
Mhm.
other, the fact that we have no
Yeah.
patience and tolerance for each other. We don't give each other grace. We don't ask the questions as to why somebody's not coping, or why someone's crying a lot, or why someone's ill a lot. Like, we don't ask those questions, we just get
Mhm.
mad at them for it.
Right,
And I think that
exactly.
it ultimately makes people feel like if they're not sick all the time, then they're better than us, as blessed, etc. So, do you know what I mean? Like, it's, if you don't
Mhm.
have struggles with your mental health, then you're somehow like better, stronger, whatever. Like, and it's nonsense because now we realize that pretty much everyone, well, everyone does have issues with their mental health at some point in their lifetime, whatever that looks like.
Mhm. Yeah.
And some will have it stronger than others or more commonly than others. Um, and anyway, I just think it creates a really intolerant society, and one that is just so hell-bent on just making people get on with it, instead of actually going, okay, well, why isn't this working? Why are so many people not enjoying working in my company that I'm running? Like, what is it that I'm
Right.
doing? Like, what is it about the ethos? Like, what is it about the demands that we're placing on them? How could we make it more flexible? Like, make them feel
Yeah.
more content, happier, more relaxed? And I think, yeah, ultimately, I think that unless we really start to look at the actual fundamental attitudes in society around giving each other grace, respecting each other's boundaries, and knowing what actually inspires a person to do great things, like, I really don't know how we'll fix it, because so many have been raised in the school system and have been raised to kind of believe the same things, and go through
Yeah.
life thoroughly miserable, which, like, treating it, thinking, well, it's just the way it is. Like, you just got to get with the program because that's how society expects you to behave. When actually, what we need to be doing is changing that perspective and changing how society expects us to behave. Even if it's in small pockets, it grows. And I think that the point of why I really wanted to stress how exciting these number shifts are is to basically demonstrate to those of you who are new and coming into this space that ultimately the number of home educators is huge, absolutely huge. That there are thousands of us in this country, like probably at least a few 100,000 in the UK, and there are millions of them in America. And so if you go online, you are going to find so much support, and that ultimately, even if, like, you may be feeling really like changed right now, like completely thrown to the wolves because your surroundings and the people who you're friends with currently and your parents and whoever else might be sitting there going, are you nuts? But I want you to
Mhm.
just know that your change, your decision to support your family, to provide a better learning environment for your kids and for yourself, potentially has this incredibly profound effect. Like, one maybe doesn't change much, but that one and every single person you're going to talk to and influence over the course of your child's education and like all of it, and then what
Mhm.
they're going to go do in the world will help to change more perspectives and help more people to realize that we don't just have to say it is what it is and put up with it. Like, we can make a change, whatever that looks like. And if you need to keep sending your kids to school but don't believe in it, you can find other ways to support them with the messaging outside of it, etc., etc. Like, there's
Yeah.
no one size fits all. Like, home education is not the only way to be doing that. There's so many
Yes.
other ways that you can
Right.
be addressing this with your kids. Um, so just yeah, just be aware, be open-minded, and allow yourself to question everything that comes into your head. Where you go, it is what it is. Question it. Is it? Is it really? Is that a fact? Or is there another way of looking at this? Because actually, there may very well be. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so I think unless there's anything else you wanted to add, Ashley, so we'll try and wrap it up there, bless you, because otherwise we'll go on about this
Yeah.
forever. But it's clearly a very passionate subject of mine.
No,
Glad to
we're
tell.
went off track here, but it definitely kind of speaks to the types of conversations you'll hear this season with us. So hopefully it was
Yes,
interesting.
absolutely. Yeah,
Hmm.
really, really good. So thanks again,
Yeah.
everybody, for listening. Excited if you are now back with us for a second season. Come and tell us if you're now excitedly back listening again, or whether you're new and whether you've just come across this. We're ranking pretty highly on Apple Podcasts now, which is very exciting. And we are currently a 5-star rated podcast. So do please give us more ratings. Make sure that you are clicking on that button because it really means a lot, and it obviously helps to get more people to find our episodes as well. Um, we're hoping for less technical glitches this time. Got the hang of it now, haven't we, Ashley? Into the swing
Fingers
of it.
crossed.
She's going to jinx it now. It's going to be fine.
I know.
Um, so anyway, so we'll let you guys go for today, but please do keep tuning in and come follow us, come get on the newsletter mailing list, and we'll be sending out a really great resource attached to this episode very shortly. All right, guys, you take care. Bye.
Bye.